mail-order bride rejected for being a fighter, until he saw the battle in her eyes and chose her. Daniel lived a quiet life on his family's farm, surrounded by wide green fields and the soft sounds of nature. The farm had been in his family for generations, and it was a place full of memories. As a child, Daniel had helped his parents care for the animals, plant seeds, and harvest crops. He had grown up with a strong sense of responsibility and a love for the simple life. Yet, despite the comfort and familiarity of the farm, there was a quiet emptiness in his life. He often returned home after a long day's work and felt the silence of the house press against him. His parents had passed away years ago, and while he loved the farm, he longed for companionship, someone to share his life with, someone who would understand him and walk beside him through the challenges and joys of everyday life. His friends often joked that he was too focused on work and didn't spend enough time meeting new people, but Daniel wasn't interested in casual relationships. He wanted someone who shared his values, someone patient and kind, someone who could handle life's ups and downs without giving up. After thinking carefully for a long time, he decided to explore a mail-order matchmaking service. It wasn't something he had imagined doing in his youth, but he realized that this was a practical way to find a partner who truly wanted a serious relationship. He wasn't looking for glamour or sophistication. He wanted honesty, loyalty, and a gentle heart. On the other side of the world, Alina lived a very different life. She had grown up in a small town where opportunities were limited, but her spirit was unshakable. From a young age, she had learned to be strong, not because she wanted to, but because life demanded it. She helped her mother care for her younger siblings, ran errands to earn extra money, and took on responsibilities that other children her age would never have imagined. Alina was aware of the difficulties of life, yet she never complained. She learned that resilience was more valuable than comfort, and she carried herself with a quiet determination that made others take notice. Despite the hardships, she always dreamed of finding someone who would respect her independence and see her not just as a helper or provider, but as a partner. When Daniel and Alina first connected through the mail-order service, their initial conversations were cautious but polite. Daniel sent a message introducing himself simply, mentioning the farm and the quiet life he lived. He wrote about his hopes of finding someone who could share in the daily joys of life, someone who could enjoy the calm of the mornings, the beauty of the fields, and the satisfaction of honest work. Alina replied with equal care, telling him about her life in her small town, the challenges she faced, and her dreams of a future where she could build a home with love and respect. She did not embellish her story. She told it as it was, plain and true. As they continued to exchange letters, a gentle connection began to form. Daniel found himself drawn to Alina's honesty and quiet strength. She had a way of expressing herself that was simple yet meaningful. She did not need to impress him with grand gestures or words. She simply spoke from the heart. Daniel appreciated this authenticity, something rare in a world where many people presented themselves in ways that were not entirely true. Alina, in turn, found comfort in Daniel's steadiness. He was patient in his replies, always thoughtful and never rushed. She felt as though she could trust him, even though they had never met in person. Over months of communication, they shared small details of their lives. Daniel described the rhythm of the farm, how the mornings started with the crowing of roosters, how the sun cast long shadows over the fields, and how he enjoyed the quiet evenings with the sounds of nature all around him. Alina told him about her routines, the market where she sold handmade crafts, the small garden she tended, and the joy she found in helping her neighbors. They shared not only their routines, but also their thoughts, fears. Through these letters and messages, they began to feel as though they were part of each other's lives, even though thousands of miles separated them. Despite the growing bond, Daniel felt nervous about introducing Alina to his family. He knew that his relatives had traditional ideas about marriage and what a wife should be. They imagined someone soft-spoken, someone who would blend quietly into the life of the farm and follow their expectations without question. They might not understand Alina's independence, her ability to make her own decisions, or her history of taking care of herself and her family. Daniel worried that they might judge her unfairly, but he also knew that he could not ignore the feelings that had grown in his heart. Alina, on the other hand, was aware that meeting Daniel's family would be a significant step. She had spent years learning to face life's challenges, and she approached this moment with careful preparation. She knew that she had to be herself, but also be mindful of cultural differences. She spent hours thinking about what to say, how to show respect, and how to make a good impression without pretending to be someone she was not. It was a delicate balance, but Alina was confident that honesty and sincerity would carry her through. Finally, the day came when Daniel invited Alina to visit his farm. He felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Traveling to a new country and meeting someone for the first time was not easy, but he trusted that their months of communication had built a foundation strong enough to support this meeting. Alina, too, was filled with anticipation. She had dreamed of this moment, the possibility of building a life with someone who truly understood her, and now it was real. She packed her belongings carefully, bringing only what she needed, but carrying with her the hope that this journey might lead to something meaningful and lasting. When Alina arrived, Daniel greeted her with a warm smile. He showed her around the farm, pointing out the animals, the fields, and the house he had worked hard to maintain. Alina listened attentively, asking questions and showing genuine interest in the work he did. She admired the simplicity of the farm life, the connection to the land, and the care Daniel put into every task. For Daniel, it was reassuring to see her appreciation. He realized that she was not someone who would criticize or dismiss his way of life. Instead, she was curious, open-minded, and willing to understand his world. Their first days together were filled with small moments that deepened their bond. They shared meals, cooked simple dishes together, and walked through the fields, discussing everything from the weather to their childhood memories. Daniel watched Alina with growing admiration. Her intelligence, kindness, and quiet strength became more apparent with each passing day. Alina, in turn, saw a man who was gentle, dependable, and sincere, a person who valued honesty and hard work above all else. Yet, even as they grew closer, Daniel could sense the subtle tension with his family. His relatives observed Alina carefully, questioning her intentions and her ability to fit into their expectations. They whispered among themselves about her independence and her past responsibilities. Some saw her as too strong-willed, too capable of standing on her own, fearing that she might disrupt the harmony of the family life they had envisioned. Daniel noticed their concern, but he also realized that he had to trust his own judgment. He could see what his family could not yet understand, that Alina's strength was not a threat, but a gift. As the visit continued, Daniel and Alina spent long evenings talking quietly by the fireplace, sharing stories about their lives, their dreams, and the hopes they held for the future. In those moments, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. It was just the two of them, learning about each other, finding comfort in shared understanding, and slowly building the foundation of trust and companionship. Daniel realized that he had found someone who could be his partner in the truest sense, someone who would stand beside him through the challenges and joys of life on the farm. Alina, too, felt a growing certainty. She had faced many challenges in her life, but meeting Daniel gave her a sense of peace and belonging she had never known. For the first time, she imagined a future where she could be herself fully, without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. She saw the possibility of a life where love and respect were mutual, where partnership meant support and understanding, and where her strength would be celebrated rather than questioned. By the end of their first week together, both Daniel and Alina knew that this meeting was more than just a visit. It was the beginning of something important, something that could grow into a lifetime of shared experiences, laughter, and challenges faced together. Though there were still obstacles to overcome, including the opinions of Daniel's family and the adjustments of merging two very different lives, they felt confident that honesty, patience, and mutual respect would guide them forward. In those first days on the farm, Daniel and Alina had planted the seeds of trust, understanding, and companionship. Each small conversation, each shared meal, each moment of quiet observation contributed to the growing connection between them. And while neither could predict the future, both felt a quiet hope that this connection could become the foundation of a lasting, meaningful partnership, one built not on appearances or expectations, but on the truth of who they were and the respect they held for each other. Alina arrived at Daniel's farm with a mixture of excitement and nervousness. She had traveled a long way, leaving behind her small town and familiar streets. The air smelled different here, fresher, filled with the scent of soil, grass, and animals. She stepped out of the car and looked around at the wide field stretching under the clear sky. It was quiet, except for the soft rustling of leaves and the occasional crow of a rooster. Everything was so different from the busy streets she had grown up in, yet there was a calm beauty she immediately appreciated. Daniel greeted her warmly, his smile gentle and reassuring. "Welcome to my home," he said, extending a hand. "I hope the journey wasn't too tiring." Alina shook his hand, feeling a spark of comfort. He had a kind way of speaking, steady and patient, and it helped ease the nervousness in her chest. She followed him toward the farmhouse, her eyes taking in the simple but well-kept surroundings. The house was modest but clean, with flower pots by the window and a small wooden porch that overlooked the fields. Daniel's care for the place spoke volumes about the kind of man he was, thoughtful, hard-working, and careful in all he did. The first few hours were filled with introductions and small talk. Daniel showed Alina the animals, cows in the barn, chickens scratching in the yard, and a few sheep grazing calmly in the field. He explained how he took care of them, describing the daily routines and chores with pride. Alina listened attentively, asking questions and showing genuine interest. She even helped feed some of the chickens, laughing when one pecked gently at her hand. Daniel watched her, impressed by her ease with tasks she had never done before. She wasn't clumsy or fearful. Instead, she approached everything with curiosity and care, as if she wanted to truly understand this life he had built. Later, they entered the house where Daniel's relatives had gathered to meet her. The room was filled with quiet whispers, and Alina could sense the scrutiny in the air. Her heart beat faster, but she reminded herself to stay calm. She had faced many challenges in her life, and while this was different, the principle was the same: be honest, respectful, and true to herself. The first conversation was polite but tense. Daniel's family asked questions about her life, her work, and her reasons for coming so far. Some of the questions were innocent curiosity, while others carried subtle skepticism. "What kind of work did you do back home?" one relative asked. "Did you always take care of your family like that?" Alina answered honestly, sharing that she had helped her mother raise her siblings, had taken on part-time jobs to support her family, and had learned to be independent from a young age. She spoke calmly, without pride or complaint, explaining that her experiences had taught her responsibility, resilience, and the value of hard work. She emphasized that she wanted a life with someone who respected her honesty and independence, someone who would see her as a partner rather than a servant or caretaker. While some relatives nodded politely, others exchanged looks of concern. They whispered to each other about her strength and independence, saying that she seemed too strong-willed or too independent for Daniel. They worried that she might challenge him, disrupt the quiet routine of the farm, or refuse to conform to their expectations. Alina sensed their unease, but refused to change herself to fit their imagined image. She remained respectful, smiling gently, answering questions honestly, and showing her willingness to help around the farm. Daniel noticed the tension and felt caught in the middle. He admired Alina's courage and clarity, but he could see why his family was hesitant. They were used to women who followed quietly and adjusted to the family's rhythm without question. Alina was different. She had her own opinions, her own habits, and her own strength. But Daniel knew this was exactly why he felt drawn to her. She was not pretending to be someone she wasn't. She was real, honest, and capable. And for the first time, he realized that strength and independence were not threats. They were qualities that made her extraordinary. Over the next few days, Alina settled into life on the farm. She woke early with Daniel, helping him with the morning chores. She milked cows, collected eggs, and even helped repair a broken fence. Daniel marveled at how quickly she adapted. She wasn't clumsy or hesitant. She observed, learned, and acted with quiet confidence. Even when she didn't know exactly how to do something, she asked politely, paid attention, and picked it up immediately. Her determination and willingness to work impressed not only Daniel, but also a few relatives who had been silently observing her. Alina also found moments to connect with Daniel personally. They would walk through the fields in the evening, sharing stories of their childhoods, their hopes, and their dreams. Daniel told her about growing up on the farm, the values his parents had taught him, and the simple joys he found in caring for the land. Alina shared her own experiences, the struggles she had faced in supporting her family, and the lessons she had learned about resilience, patience, and empathy. In these conversations, they discovered a shared appreciation for honesty, simplicity, and a life built on trust and respect. Despite the growing connection between them, the tension with Daniel's family lingered. Some relatives continued to whisper, questioning whether Alina's independent nature would cause problems. One evening, a cousin quietly remarked, "She seems more like a fighter than a gentle wife. Are you sure she's the right person for our family?" Daniel felt a pang of frustration. He loved his family, but he knew that their judgment should not dictate his choice. He had grown to admire Alina's strength, her kindness, and her sincerity. He could see the way she cared for the farm, the animals, and for him. Her resilience was not arrogance. It was a form of courage that he had never seen before. Alina, meanwhile, sensed the unease, but refused to let it affect her. She continued helping wherever she could, offering to cook meals, assist with chores, and learn more about the farm. She smiled when spoken to, thanked those who helped her, and respected the family's traditions and routines. She was patient, understanding that trust and acceptance could not be rushed. Slowly, her consistent actions began to soften some of the skepticism around her. Relatives who had been wary started to notice that she was reliable, kind, and genuinely committed to understanding their way of life. One afternoon, Daniel took Alina to see the fields where he grew most of his crops. The sun was high, and the wind moved gently across the tall grass. He explained how each plant required care, attention, and patience to thrive. Alina listened intently, asking questions about techniques, growth cycles, and seasonal changes. she asked thoughtfully, showing genuine interest, and even suggested small ideas she had learned from her own experiences. Daniel smiled, impressed by her curiosity and her willingness to learn. He realized that her independent nature was not a challenge to him, it was a compliment. Where he had knowledge of the land, she brought fresh perspective, energy, and insight. The evenings they would sit together in the farmhouse, watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky turned orange and pink, reflecting off the fields and filling the house with warm light. In those quiet moments, the weight of skepticism and worry from the family seemed to fade away. It was just Daniel and Alina, sharing stories, laughing at small jokes, and learning to enjoy each other's presence. These moments strengthened their bond and built the foundation of trust, understanding, and companionship. As the days passed, Daniel began to see something in Alina that he had not fully realized before, a deep inner strength that could face challenges without fear, yet remain gentle and compassionate in every interaction. She did not demand approval or recognition. She simply acted with integrity and care. And in that, Daniel saw a partner who could stand beside him through any difficulty, someone who would face life's storms without losing her sense of self or her kindness. Alina, too, began to understand Daniel more fully. She appreciated his calm nature, his patience, and the care he took in everything he did. She realized that while his family's expectations could be daunting, Daniel himself was someone who listened, observed, and valued her for who she truly was. That recognition gave her hope. She could see a future where they built a life together based on mutual respect, love, and shared values, rather than conforming to the narrow expectations of others. By the end of her first week on the farm, Alina had become more comfortable in her new surroundings. She had earned the quiet respect of some of Daniel's relatives and had shown her sincerity, capability, and heart. She had laughed, worked, and shared moments of vulnerability with Daniel, and each day had brought them closer. Though challenges remained, particularly in convincing the family fully, both Daniel and Alina knew that the foundation of trust and understanding they had built was strong. Their time together had revealed much more than they had expected. It had shown them that life together would require patience, cooperation, and courage. It had revealed that Alina's strength was not something to fear, but a source of resilience and partnership. It had also shown Daniel that sometimes love and understanding required trusting his own heart above the opinions of others. And in that quiet farm, surrounded by green fields and the soft sounds of nature, Daniel and Alina began the next chapter of their journey. It was a journey filled with hope, careful steps, and the promise of a partnership built on honesty, respect, and the willingness to face life's challenges together. Life on the farm had settled into a rhythm, but one afternoon nature reminded Daniel and Alina that life was never completely predictable. Dark clouds rolled over the fields, moving faster than anyone expected. The wind grew stronger, rattling the windows and bending the trees. Rain began to pour, heavy and relentless, pounding against the roof. Daniel immediately knew that the farm's storage sheds and equipment could be at risk if they weren't secured quickly. He grabbed his raincoat and boots, prepared to move outside, and called for Alina to follow him. Alina didn't hesitate. She had faced many storms in her own life, both literal and figurative, and she knew the importance of action over fear. Together they ran across the muddy fields, tying down loose materials, moving supplies to higher ground, and checking the animals. Alina's movements were quick, precise, and confident. She didn't panic or hesitate. She tied ropes around a loose gate, lifted boxes of feed, and carried tools back and forth, always with a steady determination. Daniel watched her closely, feeling a mix of admiration and relief. In a moment when anyone could have faltered, Alina's courage shone through. The storm raged on for hours. Rain soaked their clothes, plastered their hair to their faces, and made the ground slippery beneath their feet. Yet, they continued to work side by side. Daniel realized that Alina's strength was not loud or aggressive. It was quiet, steadfast, and unwavering. She didn't need to shout or demand attention. She simply acted, solving problems as they arose, staying calm under pressure, and keeping her focus on what mattered most, the safety of the farm and its animals. At one point, a strong gust of wind threatened to knock over a large crate filled with tools. Daniel was about to grab it himself, but Alina reached it first. With a firm grip, she held it steady while Daniel tied it down securely. In that instant, Daniel felt a deep admiration for her. He realized that she was not only capable of handling herself, but also of protecting others in moments of difficulty. She was a fighter, not in the sense of being combative, but in the sense of being resilient, courageous, and determined. As the storm slowly passed and the rain lightened to a drizzle, they checked the farm for any remaining damage. Thankfully, their combined efforts had prevented anything serious. The animals were safe, the storage sheds were intact, and the equipment had been secured. Daniel was exhausted, soaked through to the skin, but he felt a sense of pride and relief. He looked at Alina, who was equally drenched but smiling faintly, and he felt his heart swell with admiration. Her determination, her courage, and her calm under pressure had left a lasting impression. That evening, as they dried off by the fireplace in the farmhouse, Daniel could no longer contain the thoughts that had been growing in his heart. "Alina," he said quietly, "I've seen many things in my life, but I've never met someone who faces challenges the way you do. I would be so happy. You don't just survive difficulties. You confront them with courage and intelligence. It's inspiring." Alina smiled gently, her eyes reflecting the firelight and a quiet understanding. She had long known that her strength was different from others, and it felt good to have it recognized, not as a threat, but as a quality to be admired. Meanwhile, some of Daniel's relatives had been watching from a distance, observing the way Alina had handled the storm. Initially skeptical, they began to reconsider their opinions. Some whispered quietly among themselves, noting that she had not only worked hard but also remained calm, respectful, and cooperative throughout the chaos. One aunt murmured, "Perhaps we judged her too quickly. She's strong, yes, but she's also kind and thoughtful. I think she genuinely cares." Another cousin nodded, adding, "She didn't need anyone to tell her what to do. She acted on her own, and she did it well." Despite the quiet acceptance growing in some family members, Daniel still had to wrestle with his own feelings. He had admired Alina from the start, but now he understood the depth of her character in a way he had never imagined. Strength, courage, and determination were not traits to fear. They were qualities that could support him, protect the farm, and help them face whatever challenges life might bring. He realized that choosing Alina was not about rebelling against his family's expectations. It was about recognizing a partner who complemented him perfectly. Alina, too, was reflecting on the day. She had always known that life required courage, and she had always faced challenges head-on, yet experiencing the storm alongside Daniel was different. It was a reminder that life's difficulties could be shared, that partnership meant facing problems together rather than alone. She felt a sense of belonging she had never experienced before. Daniel's calm presence, his patience, and his quiet strength balanced her own determination, creating a sense of harmony that was rare and comforting. The next morning, the farm was soaked, but the sun had returned, casting a warm light over the wet fields. Daniel and Alina went outside to inspect the aftermath. Muddy footprints marked the areas where they had worked, and the plants glistened with raindrops. The animals were alert and healthy, and the farm equipment remained secure. Daniel smiled, feeling proud of what they had accomplished together. "We made a good team," he said, nudging Alina gently. She laughed softly, her wet hair sticking to her forehead, and nodded. "We did," she replied. "Teamwork makes everything easier." That day, as they worked side by side, they shared more stories about their past experiences with challenges. Daniel told Alina about storms he had weathered as a child, crops he had lost to unexpected weather, and the small victories that had shaped his life. Alina shared stories from her own childhood, the times she had cared for her siblings when her parents were busy, the jobs she had taken to support her family, and the lessons she had learned about patience, resilience, and hope. Through these conversations, they discovered not only their shared values, but also the compatibility of their temperaments. Daniel admired Alina's decisiveness and practical approach, while she appreciated his thoughtfulness and ability to remain calm under pressure. The storm had done more than test their ability to handle physical challenges. It had revealed the core of their characters. Daniel saw that Alina's independence was a strength, not a challenge. He realized that her courage and decisiveness could be a foundation for a life built together. Alina recognized that Daniel's patience and calmness provided stability, a safe environment where her strength could be expressed without fear or hesitation. Later that evening, as they sat quietly by the fire again, Daniel's thoughts turned to the future. He knew that choosing Alina would mean facing some resistance from his family, but he also knew that her character and sincerity outweighed their doubts. He understood that a strong, honest partner was far more valuable than someone who merely fit a preconceived idea of a perfect wife. Daniel realized that Alina's courage, resilience, and compassion made her someone worth standing by, someone who could face life's uncertainties with him and not waver. Alina, in turn, felt a growing sense of trust in Daniel. She had always hoped for a partner who would respect her honesty and independence, someone who could value her strength rather than fear it. Daniel had shown her that he could see beyond appearances and family expectations, that he could appreciate her true self. She felt hopeful that their partnership could grow into something lasting, grounded in mutual respect and understanding. The storm, with all its intensity and chaos, had become a turning point in their relationship. It had shown Daniel Alina's true nature and had given the family a glimpse of her resilience. More importantly, It had strengthened the bond between the two of them, showing that together they could face challenges that neither could face alone. The shared experience became a symbol of what their life together might be, full of hard work, unpredictable events and challenges, but also strengthened by trust, courage, and partnership. As the day ended, Daniel and Alina took a quiet walk through the wet fields. The air was fresh, filled with the earthy scent of rain and grass. The sky was clearing, and the sun cast golden light across the glistening land. They walked side by side, their steps in sync, reflecting on what they had accomplished together. Daniel finally spoke, breaking the comfortable silence. "Alina, today I realized something important," he said softly. "I don't want someone who only fits expectations. I want someone who stands with me, who faces life as it comes, who shares both the challenges and the joys. You are that person." Alina looked at him, her eyes steady and calm. She felt a warmth in her heart, a quiet reassurance that she had not only found a man who understood her, but a man who valued her strength. "Thank you, Daniel," she said. "That means more than I can say. I've always wanted to be with someone who sees me for who I am, not for what they expect me to be, and I feel the same about you. Together, we can face whatever comes." In that moment, the foundation of their partnership grew even stronger. The storm had tested them, challenged them, and revealed the best of both their characters. It had shown that Alina's courage was a blessing, Daniel's patience a strength, and their combined abilities a perfect complement to one another. And as they returned to the farmhouse dripping wet but smiling, they both knew that this experience had brought them closer to a future filled with understanding, trust, and love. After the storm, life on the farm returned to its usual rhythm, but something had changed between Daniel and Alina. There was a quiet understanding that had grown stronger over the past days, a sense of partnership that neither of them could ignore. The storm had shown them both what it meant to rely on each other, to face challenges together, and to trust in one another's strength. And yet, there were still questions to be answered, both for Daniel and for his family. Daniel spent long hours thinking about the future. He knew he had feelings for Alina, feelings deeper than anything he had experienced before. Her courage, honesty, and independence had drawn him in, and he admired her for it every day. Yet he also knew that choosing to be with her would not be simple. His family still held traditional views about marriage. They valued obedience, gentleness, and conformity to expectations. Alina did not fit their mold, and Daniel worried about the tension that might continue if he did not handle the situation carefully. Despite the concerns, Daniel could not ignore what he had seen during the storm, or the way he felt when he was around Alina. He realized that she was not a threat to his life or his farm. She was a partner in the truest sense of the word. She brought strength where he was gentle, decisiveness where he was cautious, and courage where he sometimes hesitated. For the first time, he understood that love was not about fitting a perfect image. It was about finding someone whose character complemented your own, someone you could trust, rely on, and grow with. Alina, meanwhile, spent her days helping around the farm and observing Daniel's life. She learned the rhythm of the animals, the care required for the crops, and the small details that kept the farm running smoothly. She worked alongside Daniel without complaint, offering help when needed and learning quietly when she did not know what to do. She was patient with the tasks, patient with Daniel's family, and patient with the slow pace of acceptance. She understood that respect and trust were earned, and she was determined to show both in every action. At the same time, Alina began to share more about herself with Daniel. She spoke about her childhood, the hardships she had faced, and the lessons she had learned along the way. She told him about the responsibilities she had carried to support her siblings, the jobs she had taken to make ends meet, and the moments when she had felt fear but chose to act anyway. Daniel listened quietly, feeling a mixture of admiration and empathy. He realized that her strength was not born from arrogance or stubbornness. It was born from experience, from love, and from a desire to face life honestly. One afternoon, Daniel decided it was time to talk openly with Alina about the future. They sat together under the shade of a large oak tree, watching the sun move slowly across the sky. Daniel spoke first, his voice calm but serious. "Alina, I've seen who you are, not just in words but in actions. You're strong, honest, and capable, and I admire that more than I can say. But I also know that being together will not be simple. My family, they have expectations, and they may not understand you at first. I need to know that you're willing to be patient, to show them who you are, without pretending to be someone else." Alina nodded, her expression steady. "Daniel, I don't expect everyone to understand me immediately. I know I am different from what your family might imagine, but I can promise you this, I will be myself, with honesty and respect. I will not change who I am, but I will show them that I am sincere and that my intentions are true. I want to build a life with you, and I believe that time and patience will help your family see that." Daniel felt a sense of relief wash over him. Her words were exactly what he needed to hear. He realized that Alina's strength was not only in her actions but also in her understanding and patience. She was willing to face challenges not only in the physical world but also in human relationships. Her approach gave him confidence that, together, they could navigate the complexities of life, love, and family expectations. As the days passed, Daniel began to speak more openly with his family. He explained that he valued their opinions but needed to make his own decisions about his future. He told them that Alina's independence, courage, and honesty were not flaws but qualities that he admired deeply. Some family members remained hesitant, unsure of how to reconcile their expectations with the reality of Alina's character. Others began to soften, recognizing the sincerity in both Daniel's words and Alina's actions. Alina continued to show her dedication through small gestures. She cooked meals for the family, helped with household chores, and even learned some traditional recipes that Daniel's relatives appreciated. She did not seek approval or praise, but her consistent kindness and effort began to speak louder than any argument. Slowly, the atmosphere in the household began to change. Some of the skepticism melted away, replaced by a quiet respect for the woman who had come so far to build a life with Daniel. During this time, Daniel and Alina spent many evenings talking about their dreams for the future. They discussed the farm, the possibility of expanding crops, and even small home improvements that could make life easier. But their conversations were not only practical, they also spoke about hopes, fears, and the life they wanted to build together. Daniel admitted his worries about his family, about the pressure to conform, and about the possibility of conflict. Alina listened patiently, offering reassurance and practical advice, always grounded in her own experience. One evening, after a long day of work, Daniel and Alina sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the fields with shades of gold and orange. The air was still, the animals resting quietly in their pens, and the world seemed calm after the storm of previous days. Daniel took a deep breath and spoke. "Alina, I've realized something important. Your strength, your courage, and your honesty, they are exactly what I need. I don't want someone who simply fits an image or meets expectations. I want someone who will face life with me, who will stand beside me when things are difficult, and who will celebrate life's joys with me. I see that in you." Alina smiled, her eyes reflecting the fading light. "Daniel, that's exactly what I want too. I don't need life to be perfect or easy. I want it to be real, and I want it to be shared with someone who respects me, understands me, and walks beside me. That's what I see in you as well." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship. It was no longer just about admiration or connection. It was about a conscious choice to commit to one another, to trust in their shared values, and to face challenges as partners. They both understood that love was not simply a feeling, but a series of decisions, actions, and mutual respect that built a life together over time. Meanwhile, Daniel's family continued to observe. Some members had begun to understand the depth of Alina's character. They saw how she worked tirelessly, treated Daniel with kindness, and handled challenges without complaint. They began to realize that her strength was not something to fear, but something that could complement Daniel's calm and steady nature. Slowly, their conversation shifted from doubt to cautious acceptance. Aunts and cousins who had once whispered about her independence now spoke of her determination and sincerity. Alina noticed the changes too. She did not expect immediate acceptance, but she appreciated the small signs of respect and acknowledgement. She continued to act with patience and kindness, knowing that trust was built through consistent action over time. She understood that her relationship with Daniel was stronger than the opinions of others, yet she also valued the gradual acceptance of his family as part of the life they hoped to build together. As weeks turned into months, Daniel and Alina's partnership grew stronger. They shared responsibilities on the farm, helped each other through challenges, and celebrated small victories together. They learned to communicate openly, to trust each other's judgment, and to appreciate the unique qualities each brought to the relationship. Daniel admired Alina's decisiveness and problem-solving skills, while she valued his thoughtfulness and steadiness. Together, they formed a balanced team capable of facing whatever life might throw their way. The combination of patience, understanding, and mutual respect began to transform the household. Even the relatives who had been most skeptical could no longer deny the positive impact Alina had on Daniel and the farm. They saw that her presence brought harmony rather than conflict, support rather than tension. And most importantly, they observed the growing bond between Daniel and Alina, a bond built on trust, shared values, and genuine affection. One evening, as Daniel and Alina sat quietly in the fields watching the stars appear one by one in the darkening sky, Daniel spoke softly. Alina, I've learned so much from you in these past weeks. Your strength, your patience, and your honesty have shown me what true partnership really means. I don't want to spend another day without knowing that we are building our future together. I want you by my side, not just today, but for all the days to come. Alina's eyes glimmered in the moonlight. Daniel, I feel the same way. I've always hoped for a partner who would see me for who I am, who would respect my past and my strength, and who would share life's challenges and joys with me. I see that in you, and I want to continue this journey together. In that moment, both Daniel and Alina knew that their decision to commit to each other was not influenced by external pressures or expectations. It was a choice born of understanding, admiration, and love, a love that had grown through shared experiences, challenges, and honest conversations. They had chosen each other not because it was easy, but because it was right. The days on the farm were peaceful, yet filled with activity. Daniel and Alina had grown closer than ever. Their mornings began with the soft light of dawn filtering through the windows, birds singing outside, and the gentle hum of the farm coming to life. Together they fed the animals, tended the crops, and shared small tasks with laughter and conversation. Life had become a shared rhythm, a harmony built on trust, care, and mutual respect. But beyond the routines of daily life, there was a deeper bond forming between them, a quiet understanding that each had found in the other a partner who could face the world alongside them. Daniel often found himself thinking about how far they had come. When he first met Alina, he had admired her honesty, her courage, and her strength. Yet he had also been unsure of how his family would react, whether they would accept her independence and determination. Over time, however, he had realized that what truly mattered was not the opinions of others, but the connection he shared with Alina. She had proven herself through action, patience, and sincerity. She had faced challenges, adapted to a new life, and shown unwavering support for him and the farm. Daniel's admiration had grown into deep respect and love. Alina, meanwhile, reflected on her own journey. She had left behind everything familiar to venture into a world unknown, trusting her instincts and Daniel's intentions. She had faced the quiet skepticism of his family and the challenges of adjusting to a new life, yet she had done so without complaint, with patience and grace. And she had found something rare, a man who valued her for who she truly was, who appreciated her strength, and who wanted her as a partner, not a caretaker or an image to meet expectations. Her heart was full of hope and certainty that their life together could be meaningful and lasting. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a golden glow across the fields, Daniel invited Alina to walk with him along the path near the edge of the farm. The sky was streaked with warm oranges and pinks, and a gentle breeze rustled the tall grass. The farm was quiet, except for the occasional call of a bird returning to its nest. Daniel felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. He had made a decision in his heart, one that he had been thinking about for days, and he knew it was time to express it to Alina. Alina, he began softly, his voice carrying both warmth and seriousness. These past weeks with you, I have learned so much. I've seen your courage, your honesty, your strength, and your kindness. I've seen how you face challenges, how you care for everything and everyone around you, and how you treat life with honesty and determination. I've watched you help with the farm, care for the animals, and support me without hesitation. And in all of this, I realized something very important. I choose you. Alina looked at him, her eyes wide but steady. She felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had hoped for this moment, yet now that it had arrived, she could hardly believe it. She listened carefully as Daniel continued. I choose you not despite your strength, not despite your independence, but because of it, he said, his voice quiet but firm. Your courage and determination are exactly what I need in a partner. Life will not always be easy. There will be storms, literal and figurative, but I want to face them with you. I want you by my side, not just today, but for every day we have together. Alina felt tears prick her eyes, but she smiled softly. Daniel, I'd feel the same way. I've always wanted a partner who would see me as I am, who would respect my strength, and who would share life's challenges and joys with me. And I see that in you. I choose you too, to be my partner, to walk beside me, and to build a life together. In that quiet moment, the world around them seemed to pause. The golden light of the sunset bathed the fields. The animals rested peacefully in their pens, and the gentle breeze carried a sense of calm and hope. For Daniel and Alina, there was only the certainty of their choice, the understanding that they had found something rare and meaningful in each other. The following days were filled with preparations for a more permanent commitment. Daniel spoke openly with his family, explaining his feelings for Alina and his decision to build a life with her. He described the partnership they had developed, the mutual respect and trust that had grown, and the qualities in Alina that made her the perfect partner for him. Some family members remained hesitant, clinging to traditional expectations, but others began to understand and respect Daniel's choice. They saw the bond between the two, the way Alina cared for the farm and the family, and the way Daniel treated her with respect and admiration. Slowly, acceptance grew. Alina continued to show her commitment not through words alone, but through consistent action. She helped with meals, maintained the house, assisted with farm work, and took time to learn about the traditions and customs important to Daniel's family. She did not seek approval, but her sincerity and dedication could not be ignored. Over time, even the most skeptical relatives began to appreciate her presence, recognizing that her strength and independence were not threats but valuable qualities that enriched the family and supported Daniel in ways they had not anticipated. As the seasons changed, so did life on the farm. Together, Daniel and Alina planted crops, harvested fields, cared for the animals, and repaired structures. They celebrated small victories, like a healthy harvest or a new calf, and supported each other during challenges, whether it was an unexpected storm or a mechanical failure on the farm. Every experience, whether joyful or difficult, strengthened their partnership and deepened their understanding of one another. One spring morning, Daniel and Alina decided to formalize their commitment with a small celebration on the farm. It was not a grand wedding, but a gathering filled with warmth, love, and authenticity. Family members who had once doubted Alina's presence now witnessed firsthand the depth of the bond between the two. The ceremony was simple. Vows spoken under the open sky, promises made to face life together with honesty, respect, and courage, and a shared recognition of the journey they had taken to reach that moment. During the ceremony, Daniel spoke from his heart. Alina, I promise to stand by you, to respect your strength, and to share in life's joys and challenges. I promise to build a life with you based on trust, love, and partnership. Today I choose you, not because it is easy, but because it is right. I choose you as my partner in life, now and always. Alina responded with equal sincerity. Daniel, I promise to be by your side, to respect your calm and thoughtful nature, and to share every challenge and joy that life brings. I promise to be honest, patient, and loving. Today, I choose you as my partner, my friend, and my companion in life. After the ceremony, the farm was filled with laughter, shared meals, and stories. Family members mingled, some offering apologies for initial doubts, others expressing admiration for Alina's courage and patience. Daniel and Alina moved among them, smiling, holding hands, and feeling the deep satisfaction of having chosen each other, despite challenges and doubts. It was a day that marked the beginning of their shared life, built on a foundation of trust, respect, and love. As evening fell and the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel and Alina found a quiet moment alone. They walked through the fields hand in hand, reflecting on the journey that had brought them together. They spoke of the challenges they had faced, the growth they had experienced, and the dreams they held for the future. Daniel looked at Alina and said softly, I know life will not always be easy, but I am grateful for every moment that led me to you. I can face anything, as long as we face it together. Alina squeezed his hand gently, and I am grateful for you, Daniel. I know that together we can handle any challenge, celebrate any joy, and build a life filled with love, respect, and understanding. I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. From that day forward, Daniel and Alina continued to build their life together on the farm. They faced challenges with patience, solved problems as a team, and celebrated the simple joys of shared existence. Their bond, tested by distance, family expectations, and the unpredictability of life, had emerged stronger than ever. They had proven that love was not about fitting a predetermined mold, but about seeing and valuing the true character of a partner, standing beside them in every circumstance, and choosing each other, again and again. The farm, once quiet and solitary, now echoed with laughter, conversation, and the steady rhythm of two lives intertwined. Daniel and Alina found fulfillment not only in their work and shared responsibilities, but also in the deeper satisfaction of partnership. They knew that their journey together had been shaped by courage, honesty, and mutual respect, and that each day offered an opportunity to strengthen that bond further. Even years later, Daniel and Alina would remember the early days, the messages that connected them across the distance, the first visit to the farm, the skeptical glances of family, and the storm that revealed Alina's courage. Those moments became stories they shared with their children and grandchildren, lessons about resilience, honesty, and the power of choosing a partner not for appearances but for true character. Their life together was not perfect, but it was real. It was filled with work, challenges, love, and laughter. And in the midst of it all, Daniel and Alina had found something rare, a partnership built on mutual respect, understanding, and the unwavering decision to stand together through every storm, literal or figurative. In the end, they had chosen each other, not because it was easy, not because it was expected, but because it was right. And that choice shaped the rest of their lives, a life filled with love, courage, and shared purpose, proving that true connection comes not from fitting molds, but from seeing, understanding, and valuing the person who stands beside you,